Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host, Rick Girard.
All right, listening to what your customers desire and having the courage to uproot your business model to accommodate them takes guts. It's essentially disrupting your own short-term profits for a long-term, bigger picture. Now, some of your employees who are comfortable will most likely leave, as most people do not like that type of change, especially radical change, leaving the opportunity for others within the organization to step up and help drive the business forward. Now, today we're going to delve into a story of what happens when you dare to disrupt your own business. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people. We do so by sharing insights from top-performing rebel entrepreneurs, game changers, and industry leaders like our guest today, Mr. Adam Philipp. Adam is founder and patent attorney of AEON Law. Now, Adam is a strategic attorney who focuses on innovative solutions for creators, entrepreneurs, and C-level executives. He believes that all of his clients deserve to understand how their IP tools will work for them, and their business model is designed to provide transparent process with predictable budgets. Adam's personal style has been described as common sense, candid, quirky, and creative. He's not afraid to take the unconventional approach, which is why I wanted him on the show, because I'm an unconventional guy as well, which is what makes Adam the perfect expert for today's topic. Adam, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thank you, Rick. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So we're going to delve right in. I want to talk about, we always do a prep call before the show, and you shared with me your red wedding story, and I put it in the title here. So let's delve right into that red wedding story.
So we have a saying in the office: if you're going to succeed, stop doing what you hate. And there's one thing that people love to hate about attorneys, and that attorneys hate about their job, and that's the billable hour.
Yep.
And
amen, brother.
And I've been thinking about this, and I just thought it was this monster that could not be tackled. Every law firm I'd ever worked with, every law firm I'd heard of, everything was tied to the billable hour. If you were successful, you had more billable hours. The law firms that performed the best had the most billable hour attorneys. And I was at a meeting with somebody who was giving a talk about how to manage cash flow in professional service businesses. And he said the worst people at managing cash flow were attorneys. And it was tied specifically to how they managed their billable hours and the fact that they had to track all of that, count it up, and then bill at some point in the future. And he said, if you could reduce that account receivable and bill even sooner, in fact, bill in advance, you would have a much better performing professional service business. And I was like, well, that's impossible, because I had all these different kinds of attorneys in my firm, and I didn't know what they were doing, and I didn't know what their projects cost. Well, except for the intellectual property attorneys. Those I really understood well. I really grokked what they were able to do. Sure. And I knew plus or minus 10% what every single project they were working on was going to take. And that was my aha moment. I was like, if I just had IP attorneys, I could switch to a model where we would tell our clients exactly what they were going to pay in advance. And we could ask for payment at the beginning of the project. Now, our firm was not set up for that. And as I thought more about what it would take, it would require a whole new pricing model for our clients. And it would be a whole new compensation system for our attorneys, because of, instead of having a salary that was tracked to their billable hours and minimum billable hour requirements, we would then track the compensation based on how many projects they completed. And the attorneys would get a share of those projects. And so I saw this picture of how to completely shift the compensation model, how to shift the way our clients paid. And I came back to the firm and I looked around and I realized that the people who were there were not the right people to implement this business model. And that's when the red wedding happened.
Got it.
I invited all of our staff and all but one of our attorneys to pursue their bliss elsewhere. And I helped them find other firms where they could continue billing on a billable hour model and keep going forward with that, the conventional model. And I restructured the firm where our clients found out exactly what their projects were going to cost in advance. Our signal to start the projects was when the project was fully funded. And our attorneys got a share of those projects. And because of the efficiency of that model, it dropped the overhead down so we could increase the share of the work that went back to the attorneys. So our attorneys shifted from, instead of getting a third of the cost to our clients, a third of the billable hours back as compensation, to over 40%. It flows back to the attorneys as compensation for each project that they deliver to a client.
Got it. All right. So if I'm hearing you properly, what I'm hearing is that like the two problems that you kind of encountered were, one, everybody hates billable hours, which I will totally attest to. And quite frankly, like me being a headhunter for the number of years, I had the same problem with everybody hates paying recruiter fees, right? Because, especially contingency ones or retained ones, because, they're so high. So they do complain about those. And then, the other thing is you had a whole lot of people there that weren't going to be along for the ride.
No, it's all the systems and all the tools that most vendors provide to law firms all assume that the billable hour is the backbone that the law firms run off of. And so, I mean, the switch truly required a spinal transplant for the firm.
Yeah.
But what it's allowed us to do is now attract experienced attorneys who've reached this point in their career where they've really figured out how to do the work. And they're more than twice as efficient as young attorneys that were starting off. But clients aren't willing to pay attorney hourly rates that are twice as expensive, even though the attorneys are more than twice as efficient. So by keeping all of the projects at the same price, so the clients know exactly what the price will be, if the attorney is more efficient, they can do 2 projects in the same amount of time as it would take a younger attorney or a less experienced attorney to do 1 project. And they get to participate in the share of each one of those projects. So they can double their compensation without it affecting the client's expectations.
I don't know why any client wouldn't love that. Like I love that so much because of the fact that, like, I don't know, like I'll talk to my attorney, we'll have a conversation. I don't know what I'm getting billed for. I'm most likely getting billed, and we're talking about golf or, something else. Like, how was your weekend? I got 15 minutes of, bullshit. And
attorneys have such, people have trust issues with attorneys in general. Yeah. That the billable hour, people, particularly business people, can instinctively see that it creates a misalignment between the attorney's interests and the law firm's interests and the client's interests. The law firm is encouraging the attorney to churn and bill for anything that they possibly can bill for in order to meet their metrics and to get their bonuses as an attorney. And the business people, the clients, understand that. and hate it
Yeah.
because they feel like it's, it's on their back, that they're the ones that have to literally pay for the extra churn and inefficiency that law firms intentionally introduce.
Yeah. Are you listening to the Higher Power Radio Show? I'm your host, Rick Girard. And for our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors. All right, I'm digging in deeper with our guest, Philipp. He's the founder and patent attorney of AEON Law. And we're talking about, red wedding moment. Wow. So, I love the fact that you had the courage to kind of uproot and disrupt your own business in such a way. I did something similar to that a few years ago for me. The quote that really resonated with me that you said, which was, if you want to succeed, stop doing what you hate. And that is super powerful because I found myself in a position where I wasn't loving my business. And I would imagine there's a piece of that with you too, right? Like, it does loop back to the client, but the truth is, like, there's things that bother you, right? So
So,
I disrupted my business too. I came in one day, I had a wedding moment. It was a Tuesday, and I said, "Hey guys, I'm shifting the business model. You don't have to leave, but you don't work here no more."
yeah, for us, that a lot of there's a lot of dissatisfaction among attorneys. A lot of attorneys don't love being attorneys. Now, as an IP attorney, as a patent attorney, we're kind of blessed because our clients usually come to us in a really excited mood. They're excited about having solved a problem, and they have the solution, and it's our job to take the fear away from them and let them share their creation with the rest of the world. So we take the fear away by giving them the confidence that their invention is protected and that they can go out there and talk about it. But it took a while for me to actually articulate that with the team and show them that we actually have this purpose where, even though we're not the ones serving the world's problems, we're freeing up the people that have solved the world's problems to share it with the rest of the world. So giving people, not just removing the hate, but giving them a view onto what the purpose of what they're doing, the why we do what we are doing, was sort of the other side of that. It's not just get to neutral. Let's get to a point where we can celebrate the joy that our clients have and know that we really have an important part in that process of fixing the world's problems.
All right, so let's delve it. Since you're saying fixing the world's problems, let's think about how you fixed your problem, right? So the red wedding happens. You come in, you invite everybody but one attorney. All right,
Right.
so like, walk me through how you structured this, or how you structured this. How you implemented your plan, because again, you don't just walk in. I mean, I thought about mine for like 3 or 4 days, and then I wrote down like exactly what was going to happen, and I kind of executed. So walk me through your kind of implementation plan here.
So the first thing I dealt with was front of house, if we're going to use a restaurant analogy. I wrote the menu, which is, I knew instinctively that I understood what all of our projects were and what they should cost. And so I sat down and broke it out, and we have about 100 menu items. It's actually not that many. And most of them are just, variations on the same item. So we know what it takes to get a patent application written and filed. We have a high complexity version, a standard complexity, a low complexity. That's it. 3 baskets.
Okay.
And then when the patent office responds to us and says, we object, we don't think that this patent should be patentable for the following reasons, we know what it takes to address those. So each one of those items is an item on our menu. There's a price associated with it. And our attorneys know that when a client has a situation, they can just go to the menu and tell the client, okay, this is what it'll take to do the next step. And the way we used to do it on every minute little step in the process, but then I realized my clients don't need that information. They want to be making business decisions. And there are some steps in the process that will always happen. So we actually broke up our pricing to even less granular level. So it's from one business decision to the next business decision.
Got
so
it.
If you want to file a patent, this is exactly what it costs. The next time we get more information from the patent office, that'll be the next step.
But let's talk about the people, like, the people in your business. Because
Right.
I think that's the piece that I think is the hard part, right?
So by switching to that model and by showing the attorneys that I was looking to hire that they could take the same amount of projects that they had worked on previously and actually invest in becoming more efficient, they would have the choice of either working just as hard and taking home a lot more money because they no longer had a disincentive to be efficient. Because if you're on the billable hour model, it's you need to work a maximum number of hours. Now you want to deliver the project as efficiently as possible. So they could either.
So you're actually probably dealing with a lot less revisions to documents that way. So
Exactly.
I totally get where you're going with it. But when you presented it to your people, you said you walked all of them out the door except for one. So like the other ones, they had no desire to work under that model?
So we had non-IP attorneys, we had employment attorneys,
Okay.
we had business formation attorneys. So many of the projects that they worked on were sort of ongoing projects where there were ongoing representation. So there wasn't a defined project that had a start and end date. And it was hard for them to visualize how this could work for them.
Yeah.
And there were other law firms that were happy to have them, and they're great billers. And so they could continue just billing away, doing what they were doing somewhere else. And they didn't need to do a radical shift. And there were staff that we had that were trained on, so there were paralegals that were trained on their metric of success was doing billable hour projects for clients, and they were used to trying to meet a certain billable hour requirement.
And you just blew their minds.
and we actually eliminated all staff pricing. So all of our fixed price projects include the attorney and staff time in just one project, so that clients just have one decision point, one business decision to make of like, is this thing that we want worth this much money? If yes, we go ahead with the project. If no, no.
Okay.
But
so,
I was going to go ahead.
So you were able to kind of clean house. Now you're at a fresh, clean slate. It's you and one other IP attorney, and go. So talk to me about how you rebuilt.
So we rebuilt, and we really took the time to invest in tools to make ourselves more efficient. So if there were types of documents where we had templates that we could use, or that there were paragraphs that we could reuse, the way I thought about it was like in the software world, there used to be linear programming, but then we came up with object-oriented programming where you could use blocks of code and we call it code reuse. Yep. So it was code reuse for patents and for other projects where we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. We can take the bits and pieces that we've used before and reuse those in efficient ways. And we just doubled and tripled down on that, on figuring out ways to really do it right the first time and then reuse portions of that. And then instead of typing, we would use dictation. If there were tools that would allow us to automatically do renumbering, take the time to figure out how to do that. So anything that could be automated, macros that could be used, anything that could make us more efficient actually led to higher revenue downstream.
Got it.
Because we were getting paid the same for the projects, whether we were doing it completely bespoke and custom every single time, or if we were using best of breed tools that we had taken the time to create and then reuse multiple times.
Got it. Okay, so which I would imagine would be a big draw to a lot of attorneys, because like you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, right? Especially when you're recruiting, if you're able to say, hey, look, you can work less time. There's a lot of I have lots of friends who are attorneys, right? And they have kids and they want to spend time with their kids. And I have one friend who's an attorney who, like, I don't know when he works, because quite frankly, he's always out, but he does really well. He bills out a lot. So, I mean, I'm like, I joke around with him. I say to him, hey, look, there's no way that you're actually, like, I think you're just billing people for, like, the time you're hanging out with me.
Well,
I'm kidding, but I mean, but I guess the point being is that that could be a huge draw for really anybody to have that flexibility and say, hey, we can automate all these processes for you.
well, so many attorneys got into law because they like the interesting parts of law.
Yeah.
But they didn't get into law to rewrite the same documents over and over again. And so by automating the parts that were automatable and reusing the parts that were reusable, it allows the attorneys to actually spend the time working on the tough parts of the invention or working on the tough branding issues for a trademark, and thinking the thoughts where they actually feel like they're using their skills.
Got it.
So it's the attorneys that we attracted a lot of attorneys that were getting burned out with having to do repetitive tasks over and over again.
Yeah.
Because the firms that they were working with wouldn't invest in any tools to increase efficiency, because that would reduce billable hour rates and reduce revenue for the firm. And so that forces the attorneys to do just rote work where they're just manually recreating the wheel every single time just so they can meet the billable hour requirements. And then they get a little tidbit of nice lawyering, challenging work in there, which they look forward to. But our system allows our attorneys to actually spend a higher percentage of their time is actually spent on the juicy, interesting part of the project.
So, I think, and that allows you to kind of really create like an ideal customer profile of an attorney that's going to work well within your organization, right? So,
yeah,
I would imagine, I'd imagine right at this point, you're like, yep, we know exactly the type of attorney that's going to fit in here.
We like the hackers that are willing to go the extra mile to set up tools. We even had one attorney on our team. He's since gone back to become a software developer, but he loves developing software so much. He wrote a system where he had his own programming language for programming patents, where he would write the code, he would hit execute, and it would generate a patent and drawings.
Nice.
But I mean, it was just that. I mean, setting up that incentive, it allowed him to do what he loved, which was software programming, and it would turn out the work product that our clients wanted, which was patent applications.
That's super cool. So what's been the kind of the result of this? Like, tell me about your growth.
So it was scary to participate in the Red Wedding, but within 1 year, I mean, we'd gotten our validation. So with we'd hired up to a team that was about half the size of what we had before, but our revenue ended up being double what it was the year before. So
boom.
boom.
Love that. I love to hear that. Mic drop moment. Boom. So you had some short-term pain, but we're able to kind of recoup that within a year, which is, that's phenomenal. You should be very, very proud of that.
But what we've also had is just long-term joy. So a lot of our attorneys have stuck around, except for one of the attorneys who decided that law wasn't his joy. It was really software that was his joy. So he went back into the software world. But for the lawyers that love the lawyering, this lets them be the better lawyers. And we just get that reinforced by our clients who always ask us to can you introduce us to other lawyers that have this same business model? And I was like, well, nope. I wish.
Nope, we don't. We're a rare breed. Very cool. Well, shoot, we're getting pretty close on time. Adam, what would be 2 or 3 key takeaways you can give the audience that can plug into the business today?
Clients love fixed pricing. If there's anything that you can do to wrap up what you're providing to their clients in a fixed price, it'll make you and your client happier. And there's no point in your relationship with the client where they're more willing to pay for the full value than at the beginning of the project. And you need a fixed price to be able to do that.
So true.
And if you have that money already paid in advance, it gives your team the confidence to know that they're going to get paid because that money is already there waiting to be paid out to them. Lawyers have a hard time sometimes with collections. They're very loyal to the clients and they feel talking about money is somehow unseemly. But by already having the finances taken care of, it frees up your attorneys to focus on just providing the best service to the clients at a time.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's why they like other businesses too, right? So shoot, Adam, thanks so much for your time investment today. And I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. What would be the best way in which members of the audience could reach you, find out more about you or your company?
So our website is probably the best resource, aeonlaw.com, AEONLAW.com. And I'm just Adam at aeonlaw.com if you have a quick question for me. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Adam Philipp. I'm the only one where Philip is spelled Philipp. So Adam Philipp on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, thank you for tuning in this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. Quick thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Rick Girard. If you're listening to the podcast, please review, subscribe, and share. After all this, this show's for you, and we want to continue to be providing valuable feedback for you and your business week after week. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, Radio, R-A-D-I-O.com, or you can drop me an email at rick@intertrue.ai. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Girard.